underway. Are we live now with our morning Councillor Louise and Councillor Maxine? Nice to see you there online. So, welcome to the Economic Development meeting of the 29th of July. We'll start with the Council Karakia. If we could put that up, please. Right, let's get underway. Maria, would you mind leading us into it? Oh. It's here. It's about to transport itself. There we are. Excellent. Thank you for that. Good morning. Okay, I've got apologies. I've got full absence from Mayor Paula and Deputy Mayor Angela O'Leary. Lateness for Councillor Muckle. I'll move, seconded by Councillor Tim. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Wonderful. Moving on. Confirmation of the agenda as per run sheet. I'll move, seconded by Councillor Anna. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Any declarations of interest? No. There is no public forum? No. Item 5, confirmation of the Economic Development Committee open minutes of the 22nd of May. I've read them. They seem to be an accurate report. Are you going to move them, or have you? No, you go ahead and move. Yep, because actually I wasn't at that meeting. Councillor Cash, thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Emma, seconded by Councillor Cash. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Excellent. We're making great progress. Colleagues, we're on item 6 now, the Chair's report. I'll move, seconded by Councillor Jeff. It is, as it appears, I have no further update other than to say, wonderful, incredible news about the medical school. This is from my point of view, it's just, again, additional confirmation of Hamilton coming of age. We've had, recommencement of international flights. We've had 2 significant hotel developments, and we've had good economic growth. We're still the fastest growing city in New Zealand. And on top of that, we've now added a medical faculty to an already world-class university. This is huge. This is great. Other than that, are there any questions of my Chair's report? No questions. Let's go to debate. I'll simply say that I move my report and open it up for debate. And Councillor McIndoe.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm sure that doesn't need to be a long debate, but I just want to echo your comments as strongly as I possibly can and point out that the success of the university in getting the medical school announcement across the line is not only a win for our region, but for the whole of the country. And it's not just the all-important gateway to training more GPs to service our hard-to-staff areas where we know there are critical shortages right around the country, but there are also very significant economic development opportunities, and that's why I think it is relevant at this particular meeting that will stem from this particular announcement for our region. It's actually one of the biggest things that has happened here in decades. And so you'll know I possibly am conflicted, but everybody knows I've been the ambassador for the project, so I'm upfront about that. This is huge, and it will be one of the greatest stimuluses to further economic development in the Waikato. So Thank you to you. Thank you to all our colleagues. Thank you to our Territorial Authority colleagues right around the region who have all backed it so strongly. It was a great day for the Waikato.
Councillor Huata.
Oh, morena i te whare. I just want to speak to two particular things in our Chair's report. And firstly was the educational delegation that we hosted from Chengdu, while our delegation from the Hamilton City Council was over in Chengdu itself. And to my knowledge, it's been a very, very long time since we've been able to formally welcome in our traditional way an international delegation, and it was received really, really well. And I just want to acknowledge Ngā Tai Atea Wharekura for opening up their school, having all these students present, over 300 students present to host and welcome that delegation, and the interaction that took place and what they were able to observe and absorb was immensely valuable. And so I hope that we continue to do that same kind of thing when other international delegations come over, because what is our unique difference on a global scale? It is who we are as tangata whenua Indigenous people and our cultural character. So, e mihi ana ki te rā āhuatanga. Secondly, with tiny groups holding, signing with, gosh, and I called it Bridgewater at our thing the other night, but it wasn't, Brookfield. I just want to really enforce that, yes, it is a great opportunity for tribal members, and we have over 94,000 tribal members across the Waikato. It's not just for our tribal members, also for the wider Hamilton City, that deal will benefit in terms of jobs and everything else that will come out of that. And lastly, even though we were unsuccessful in securing FMG as the venue for Te Matatini, Waikato, Hamilton City will definitely receive benefits economically. Tēnā tātou.
Agree more. Colleagues, wonderful, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Wonderful. Okay, moving on now to item 7, external agencies. Blair or Sean, would you like to introduce, or should we just welcome Barry and Mark and Scott and team? Wonderful. Yeah.
Page 89 of the agenda.
Excellent. Oh, page 89, because it was part of sort of a late attachment.
It's the presentation.
Yep.
Can we get that up on screen?
We're in your hands, Barry. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Chairman, councillors. Always great to have the opportunity to come along and talk to you about progress we're making at the airport company. Chairman, fascinating just to be reminded of some of the stuff that's going on at the moment in Hamilton and the Waikato. It's a tough environment out there at the moment in the organisations that I'm involved in, and to see the continued growth and development that's going on in Hamilton is really, really exciting. And we're really proud to contribute in our own small way to some of the exciting things that are going on at the moment. We've got the team here with me, Mark, our Chief Executive, Scott and Nicola, who will give a brief presentation in terms of the progress that we're making to date. So I won't use up the time doing that, other than to note that, as I've said before, when I've come along to these meetings, we've had a clear plan, a clear strategy for the organisation that was designed to about accommodate the vagaries of life and economies and COVID and all the rest of it. And I'm really proud of the way in which sticking to that strategy has actually created real sustainable growth and opportunity for the airport company. I don't want to gloss that, because there's some really neat stuff and we need to celebrate that, not the least, seeing jets come over my house again is really cool. Some great stuff going on with in terms of our future property development, but the environment is tough. Travelling public, passenger numbers, It's great to have the Jetstar numbers coming in there to make that better, but it is tight. You would have seen some of the stuff coming out from Air New Zealand around numbers travelling around the country. So it's still a very difficult environment, but we do what we will do and always do to accommodate that and make sure that we're still investing smartly in the right aeronautical infrastructure for the company and the airport to be well prepared for the future that's ahead of it. So with those introductory comments, Chairman, can I hand over to Mark to give us a quick presentation? Thank you.
Morning, Chair, and morning, Council. If we could move to the next slide, please. Look, just very briefly, year in review. Those first 3 points will talk to the financial performance, international and the new domestic jet service separately. We've got a slide on each of those, so I won't spend any time now other than to echo Barry's comments. We've had a lot of success in the past 12 months in some of these key initiatives, but it's, I guess, on the background or on the shoulders of a lot of work over the last perhaps 5 to 10 years to get us there. We still have a challenge with the hotel. The hotel is, I guess, patchy. Its performance perhaps represents some of the economic challenges as well. It continues to provide a modest return to rail and meet its budget expectations, but it is still tough trading. The Precinct North development, those of you that may have been out our way, we're well through the earthworks development of the first 20 hectares of land, and civil works is underway, so you'll see quite a different landscape out there, and also the new design build for Asmus begins construction later this month through August as well. So by about sort of April next year, there'll be 20 hectares fully prepared in respect of roading, civil works, the lateral infrastructure, and the build that should be completed about April. I think there was a question about Piper Vision, and perhaps I'll just use that now just to give you an update. You may recall, of course, that Piper Vision initially was intent on trying to obviously solve the riddle of fog, and that was a challenge for them in terms of being able to find the chemical compound or the secret recipe that was going to sort of dilute that fog, and that wasn't successful. However, they've turned their attention very strongly to fog casting, so trying to predict fog, and they've been very, very successful at that. They have a joint venture with Air New Zealand with a number of airports, including our own, and also a couple of airports now in the UK. If we look at Hamilton at the moment in the laboratory, we are the most accurate forecasting of any New Zealand airport that they're working with. And that's, I think, on the back of all of the historical data collected when they were trying to deal with fog per se. Come October, they will officially launch Hamilton. What that essentially means, and look, I'm not a sort of an expert in this field, but essentially what the fogcasting does, it provides the airline with 4 hours out of departure and accuracy of within 15 minutes as to what the conditions will be on arrival or departure. So what that means for the airlines is that they can either leave as planned, they can delay, they can cancel, they can do whatever they choose to do, but it's a far better customer experience, far better efficiency for the airline, that there's not a fuel burn when there's nowhere that they're going to land. So it's a very exciting development, and that for our airport, I think, will be fantastic, because at times the airlines do make decisions based on the conditions the night before or in the early hours of the morning. Now they'll have a degree of confidence and accuracy that they can proceed with those flights. So we're still a very, very small shareholder, as you might recall, so we're still very much actively involved. We can move on to the next slide, please. Just a couple of comments, and Barry did allude to this. I think it's important to note that the economy is still having a significant impact on discretionary spend for travel, tourism, and in fact for business right across New Zealand. We are seeing a retraction of services and by Air New Zealand in particular, and some of the regional airlines. You would have seen major announcements and press, particularly around Sounds Air recently. So that is a major concern. And I think this is not only domestic, but if we even look at the international inbound, I heard some stats this morning that globally, the airline, and I'm sure Ewan is all over this, but globally, airline revenues will be 119% of pre-COVID this year, including passenger numbers. New Zealand is still at about 87% inbound into New Zealand, so we still have not even recovered to COVID. The rest of the world has launched way ahead. So look, we've got some international challenges as well as the domestic play out for us. So look, we are doing well. Jetstar is significantly helping that. The domestic jet service will also assist Hamilton, and we are, I guess we're the best of an average bunch at the moment. So our routes are performing way better than and particularly the Hamilton Christchurch route. So we've got a lot to be proud of and positive about, but it's on the backdrop of definite uncertainty. Same with property. We are preparing that 20 hectares. We've got some, as I say, the initial design build and another one under negotiation. But again, we don't expect property to seriously recover for the next couple of years. The great thing is we will be ready with land to either develop, put design builds on, sell land, or whatever we choose to do. We'll be in a great position as the economy recovers over the next couple of years. I'll just hand over to Scott now on the numbers.
Right, good morning, everyone. So you will have received in your pack the high-level 2025 draft annual report. The first thing that probably took your attention was the large profit number. That's driven by a revaluation gain. So other gains are non-cash items, and that's principally come about from the revaluation of the Northern Precinct land on completion of the private plan change during the financial year that's just ended. So that is an indicator of future value and future returns, but as it's a long-term investment, that will take some years to realise. More in the trading business, more pleasingly, we're able to see revenue growth across all areas of our trading, from the hotel to all aspects of the airport. It's great to be able to report growth in a challenging economy. It has kept pace really just with inflation though, so we've obviously had some extra costs coming through, some start-up costs associated with international, and about part of that's finding a balance between our commercial aspirations, but also keeping the airport affordable to welcome new business and support our sort of tenants and customers as well. First time in a while, significant aeronautical investment, so 11.5 million made across the airport. That includes principally the international terminal, but also, as we'll come to in a couple of slides' time, the Air and Medical Centre, and how that will more broadly foster general aviation and help us grow that as well. And then just a final point of note, on our balance sheet, we've also been able to revalue back the international terminal assets that we'd retained. Obviously, the fit out is new, but if you like, the structure of the building, that had been previously written off when international services ceased. So it's great to be able to see those assets come back on book as well. If we just move to the next slide, a little bit more crystal ball gazing this one, but revenue growth next year is a bit more meaningful. We've got the benefit of international services running for the full year, so they only ran for 2 weeks of the financial year that just ended. And of course, Air New Zealand's domestic jet service as well, which brings in reasonably significant capacity growth into Christchurch. So reasonably, probably close to $2 million of revenue growth from the additional passengers and the benefit of not only the landing charges, but what passengers will be spending around the airport precinct and retail. See, with international, there's duty free as well. So we've got a significant year ahead for Precinct North. So we've got the plan change, and as Mark's talked about, the early enabling works that will happen, around about 26 million to complete stage 1 and our first significant design build as we shift away from that historical, I guess, strategy of selling land, and now we're reinvesting the proceeds of that into these sorts of ventures. And I think just to note that our debt will increase significantly as we help fund some of these investments. So Look, our debt level will double, but just to give you some comfort that our interest coverage, our ability to service the debt is as strong as it ever has been, and our gearing. So in terms of our balance sheet strength, it continues debt to be reasonably modest at around 20%. So significant increase, but we see that as being low risk given where it's being spent and the returns that we expect to get off it in the short term. We just move, I think, to the next slide.
Just very briefly, an update on Jetstar. So, perhaps there's a few key statements here. One, the activity of the routes has performed ahead of our business case and ahead of the business case for Jetstar. If we look at the Gold Coast, it's operating at about an 89% load factor over since commencement through to the end of last week. 3 flights a week, and Sydney's operating at about 76% on 4 flights a week, both ahead of the initial kind of 3-month expectation. So that's going very, very well. We're also very pleased with generally the operational performance. Obviously, one flight a day, one aircraft a day, that if you run into problems, then they become rather large problems. We have had a couple of issues, of course, but generally we're very happy with the on-time performance of the service. So minimal disruptions either through weather or engineering issues. I think the other point we're noticing anecdotally is that the market reach is where we thought it would be. It's as wide as the Bay of Plenty, Rotorua, Taupo, as well as, of course, the Waikato. So that's sort of really encouraging. The forwards are looking good. So as a general statement, Jetstar are very happy with the performance, and we've had excellent feedback really on the process, the ease of transitioning from the car park to the aircraft, and really good feedback on the terminal, the flow. The border agencies are very comfortable, very happy with the way it's operating. So all in all, a successful launch in first few weeks. Thank you. The next slide.
Just an update from Air New Zealand, and the obvious news is the return of a domestic jet service after 25 years has been sort of the highlight of the past couple of months. So that will go to Christchurch 5 days a week, but coupled with that is the fact that there's now an early morning Christchurch arrival. So currently the first flight gets in about 10:30. There's a flight that gets in 5 days a week, will be getting in before 9 o'clock. That has the obvious benefit of allowing Christchurch business people to come to the region, do a full day of business and make a return travel rather than sort of losing the first couple of hours of the morning. So it's great to be able to see some, not only the jet service, but some real vested growth on that route. The jet service, of course, replaces 2 ATRs, so there's a small amount of growth, but I think having that full day business will be a significant boost to the region. Interesting sort of comment in Air New Zealand's logic behind deploying a jet to Hamilton. Obviously, population between Hamilton and Christchurch, but they noted they wanted to make a sustainable investment, and they saw that because both regions supporting the service have high economic growth. So that's obviously acknowledged nationally, sort of our aspirations for the region, which is great. Other challenge that Air New Zealand has been facing, of course, is the jet engines for the Airbus fleet. It would seem the worst of that's behind them. They've got 3 additional Airbus aircraft joining the fleet and returning to service from storage in the next few months. They've also been able to source internationally extra engines to support the current fleet. So in that sense, we hope that the worst is behind Air New Zealand, and the engineering constraints and things that have sort of dogged the market for the past couple of years are behind us. We've also got 2 new ATRs. And of course, the opportunity with jet services coming to Hamilton is those 5 days a week that they're freeing up 2 ATRs that would have been coming here by one jet to support the wider sort of national ecosystem. The other large piece that's happening with Air New Zealand is the next-gen aircraft. This is that electric aircraft that's been we've been working through over the past couple of years. So while ourselves in Auckland weren't successful as the initial commercial demonstration, obviously when a new aircraft comes to the market, there's a bit of work to do around test flying it, improving it, getting certifications, and that aircraft will be based in Hamilton. It's arriving, we understand it's at the Paris Air Show. It's just left the Paris Air Show on its way to New Zealand, and it'll be here in sort of the last quarter of the year. So again, that's the broader sustainability story we've had with solar farms, and that has seen Hamilton as a really attractive base for that aircraft. I think, next slide. Just on here, some of these topics have been talked about, but I just thought I'd just spend briefly, expand on the comments I made earlier around the Aeromedical Centre. You'll be aware, most of you, in 2022 we bought the former L3 and CTC Pilot Academy that was home to 300 students, of course, all mostly international students, and the challenges that we had with foreign students in COVID. That facility is, we've courted a number of flying schools, and with the assistance of some of the councillors here over the past couple of years. Flight training industry has evolved. That facility, probably for 300 students, was a bit too big for most operators. So we've retained, as it stands, about 2/3 of the facility that would support 150, 200 students if the right opportunity comes in. But it's also enabled us to better support the aeromedical industry. So the hangar and some of the office facilities have been repurposed. Hamilton, and interesting as we've talked about med schools, as the hospital, obviously being a large tertiary provider, we support over 3,000 patient transfers a year through the airport. That's nearly 10% of the airport's traffic. As it stood, the medical operators were unloading in front of the terminal, and indeed that space is now needed by Jetstar, but also from a, call it, patient experience, unloading people on the apron in front of the terminal, and the elements is not great. So we're pleased that we've been able to work with Lifelight, as it's called, the anchor tenant, who have set up base here to have a purpose facility. It's on the western side of the airport, so they can turn out onto State Highway 3 and it goes straight to the hospital. It has enabled us more broadly to have 40% more apron space. And by widening the taxiway, if you've been to the airport lately, you'll see a number of freight aircraft in Hamilton for maintenance. We're able to provide parking for them, large corporate jets, and some of that as well. So it's really fostered not only the smaller general aviation, but the larger general aviation, and call it non-airline activity as well, through that relatively small investment and what its potential it's opened up. I think otherwise, I'm pretty sure everything else on there we've talked about in the interest of time. Move to the next slide.
Just a brief update on the designation, and there's a lot happening, but perhaps not a lot to report at the moment. So the lot happening has been a full, as we've mentioned previously publicly, our planners and our lawyers have had a full review of the designation. We've been working very closely with both Waipa as the regulatory authority, and also conversations with central government and where the opportunity sits for the potentially an extended runway under a much broader resilience piece. And so, look, what I can say at this stage is that the and the other key piece here is that there are some landowners around the airport that are either impacted by the designation. So in other words, they have their land is blighted by the current designation, the runway designation, or they have a vested interest. And we're working through that process as well. We have a meeting in August where we're sort of bringing together most of this information, and then there'll be some further work to do. But our intention is by the end of this year that we have prepared I suppose I'd term it a draft application to seek an extension to the designation. And we will then need to test that with Waipa prior to, of course, the designation lapses at the end of next year. Because, like you, Waipa are a shareholder, there will be an appointment of an independent commissioner for the application. So there's a process now for us to work through. So it's an active piece of work, and I would imagine by the AGM towards the end of this year, we'll have some real clarity on where we're at. But the work streams are progressing as sort of planned. All right. Next slide, please. So really, I think here, the main comment I would make is that and we'll start with the last point, the 10-year strategic review. Most of you would be aware that we've operated under a current 10-year strategy, which I think has been very successful for the company, both for TPL, the property arm, and for the airport. We've taken the decision, because there's a lot has happened, perhaps in the last 2 years, we've undertaken a full strategic review of both the aeronautical and the property business, and that work is all but complete. Final drafts will be, or the final documents will be ready over the next 10 days, and we'll go to the board at our August board meeting for consideration. No doubt there'll be some tweaks and changes, unless Barry agrees with everything we say first up, but sure there'll be some conversations around that with an intention to finalise that strategy later this year, and to certainly give the shareholders a broad view of the next 10 years as we see it at the November AGM. So it's shaping up very well. We've got some exciting opportunities, both obviously the aeronautical piece is very exciting, so is the property in terms of where we see the next 10 years. So whilst it's a couple of years early, we feel it's an appropriate time to review. So that's been and continues to be a big piece of work. Precinct North, while we're underway, we haven't officially marketed, and that's really been a decision around the economic situation. But our intention towards the end of the year or early next year is we will be far more actively marketing Precinct North. We'll have a building underway, we'll have the civil works well underway, so we've got something to show people that have an interest in future developments. And I think that's the main message I would leave in terms of what's ahead. And Chair, that's it from us. I don't expect you, there is a couple of videos which are about a minute long, but they're there for later on, but they were really just demonstrating the earthwork activity on Northern and the offset site, which we haven't talked a lot about today, but we have planted 45,000 trees and shrubs on the 11 hectares of land. That's our offset compensation site as well.
Look, thank you very much for that wholesome presentation. I've got a few questions. Councillor McIndoe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And just before, I have got a couple, but I noticed that on our run sheet, we were only allowing up until 10 o'clock. I presume we can go further down the path. I don't want to hold Nicola up.
No, we can.
So you're okay. Barry, Mark and Scott, thank you for your presentation this morning. A couple of things, if I could. Mark, I think the figure you gave for New Zealand's recovery in international aviation was at 87 of pre-COVID, whereas the international figure is 119% at the moment. It's obviously not something that you can solve overnight, but have you got any thoughts as to why we're so far behind the international trend, how soon we might recover, and what's holding us back?
I certainly don't want to stray into central government or the airlines, but look, my very simple observations are a couple of things. I think one, the risk profile for the airlines has changed since COVID. So we're a long, skinny, narrow route down to New Zealand from, say, North. So a decision perhaps for a North American airline or for an Asian airline to fly within continents, America to Europe and back, it's a sure bet often to fill up those aircraft at the moment, whereas coming to New Zealand is quite expensive. There's per nautical mile, there's the costs are a lot more. The airlines themselves may advocate around the costs now within New Zealand, not only the costs, the border costs, but also the costs of operation in New Zealand. So I think that's a big part of the decision making. And of course, the biggest impact is China, which I think currently it's probably still down about 40% on pre-COVID. So I think until the Chinese economy or the decision to travel to this part of the world recovers, I think without China recovering, it's going to make it very difficult to get those numbers back above 100%.
And that makes sense, because I'm assuming we would want to develop our Chinese market as quickly and as extensively as possible. And maybe it's something that Nicola will have a comment on in her presentation in a few moments. The other matter I just wanted to raise, Barry, you and Mark both made the comment that obviously you are operating still in a very tough climate. We understand that, and you referred to the recent announcement from Sounds Air about the fact that they've closed stopped a couple of their services in the South Island. Given that it's desirable for us and for WRAL to be able to be operating those small regional services, particularly Hamilton, Palmy and others of that type, what lessons do you think we can learn from the Sounds Air experience? Given that they were reporting that the demand was still there, it was the costs that had just made it untenable to continue.
A couple of comments I'd make. Firstly, on Origin Air, we are in active discussions with Origin to increase their schedule, Palmerston North Hamilton, and we have provided support for that initiative. They're working through that at the moment, but until they finalise their position, there's not a lot more I can say publicly. But we have actively supported Origin in this market really since the commencement of operations. So we've made a point of it's important to have them operating those routes. And we, of course, have had Sun Air that has also actively expanded. Unfortunately, right at the moment, they have some challenges around their certification of aircraft, which is a unique set of circumstances. But look, I think overall, most of the regional airlines are flying relatively old, inefficient aircraft in terms of, operational costs are quite high compared to, and the capital to reinvest for them is a challenge. So perhaps, so they have enough to operate, but not much more. And I think we heard, those of you that heard the Prime Minister's comments actually on the radio, I think yesterday morning, there didn't appear to be a lot of support for government support into the regional airlines. So it's a watch the space, really. It's tough. It's very, very tough for them.
I appreciate that. So all power to your arm. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll go to Councillor Bidder, and then after Councillor Bidder, I'll go to Maxine online, and I'll squeeze you in then, Maxine. Councillor Bidder. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Mark, so the accounts show investment property and development property totals over half your net assets, so it's an important part of the business. You've talked about a strategic review that's underway for 10 years. The industrial market is struggling at the moment. What should we as councillors be aware of in the short and medium term about industrial property, and is there anything we can do to improve value for you?
I'll make a quick comment. Commercial and industrial's flat at the moment, but I think we all understand, and some of the work the council's done also, there is actually, when you look ahead, there's a shortage of commercial and industrial land for the sort of development that's going to happen. So it's a matter of if and when. So we're very confident that the demand will return, and we'll be well placed to respond to that. I personally have no doubt that we will do very well out of the investment that we've made in this area.
I'd add too that I think with Brookfield's investment into Ruakura and partnership with TGH, I think that demonstrates that there's a strong belief in the region in terms of industrial commercial development. We are certainly getting inquiry, particularly out of Auckland still. It's a timing issue given the economy, but I think, and of course our land values, I think we've hit the cycle very, very well. We obviously sold land at a time where the market was strong. There's, as Scott's mentioned briefly, in the narrative that will develop ASMIS. If we, for whatever the reason, needed to pause at that point in terms of interest, then the costs associated with developing the 20 hectares and building ASMIS is covered by the investment, the rent return from ASMIS. So I guess we're in a good position to move forward or to hold, depending on the market conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Councillor Mack.
If I might just, through the chair, just add a couple of comments. In the Strategic Growth Committee, in a couple of weeks' time, we have an update on the Industrial Land Study Report, which actually shows that in the short term there's sufficient supply, but in the medium-long term there's quite a big deficit. And so the likes of the Northern Precinct is a critical part of that supply for the metro economy. And I'm talking about sort of the Taupiri through to Hamilton, Cambridge, Te Amutu. So we welcome the supply at the airport, and it's a critical part of that medium long-term demand that we are seeing. And it's driven by a range of factors, proximity to Auckland, the growing economy of the Waikato, our role in logistics, etc. So I think the airport development is completely aligned with that medium long-term direction.
Councillor Maxine.
Kia ora, and thank you, Mark, Scott and Barry. My question's really about the, now that we've got the international flights reinstated, how are you working to maximise the benefits around economic, social and that connectivity piece with our Australian cousins? So that Hamilton ratepayers are benefiting, I guess. And is there anything as council that we could be doing that we're not?
Okay, look, what I would say is that there is a very active and ongoing piece of work around marketing and the promotion of the routes. We're not, so we're working very closely, and Nicola will, so Hamilton Waikato Tourism and the airport company in respect of the inbound piece, so Australia into the Waikato, and also for the airport company focusing on the outbound opportunity as well, because we need to fill the aircraft both ways. But look, our Australian partners are very active. We are very active. We're in Australia actually next week again to meet with Sydney Airport and Tourism New Zealand and other partners in Australia. So I think we'll very strongly, we've got a strong marketing plan, activity plan for the next 12 months, and we'll just continue to work that hard with Jetstar. So I think, and there's the growing awareness, you know, we've now had roughly 8,000 passengers that have been on the planes already in the last 6 weeks. So I think this whole generation of word of mouth and awareness will continue to grow. So that's very much the focus, because to embed these routes successfully provides the launch pad for further conversations.
And Chair, if I could just add quickly to that, obviously the secret to the social and economic benefits are the numbers coming in, and we're seeing that, and we've provided information to you previously as to what this is worth to your community and the broader community. In terms of what Council can do, just continue to support us as you have done, particularly as a shareholder and as a key stakeholder, as we've made the investments necessary and committed the resources necessary in order to secure the international flights, and we are continuing to work on what next and what might be added to that. So again, just continue to support the ambition that the airport company is showing in terms of growing this market. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Maxine. Councillor Pike, followed by Councillor Maria.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks Barry, Scott and Mark for your presentation today. You speak about national resilience as a consideration of the national, of the runway designation, particularly in terms of central government. Are you aware of any weaknesses in the current alternative bases, such as the RNZF, Ohakea base, particularly in terms of their decision not to upgrade their tarmac in 2024 and their personnel concerns? And as a follow-on to that, would Hamilton have similar concerns, or are we well placed to respond?
Look, I think the first around resilience, I think we all accept that the Upper North Island, so the growth not only of the city but of the region and of the Upper North Island, it is ultimately the economic powerhouse for the country over the next sort of 20, 30 years and longer. So I think most of the population, as we know, will drift into the Upper North Island. So I think the resilience piece is important. We have seen and we've seen at Auckland Airport good examples actually in the last couple of years of more weather disruption than we've ever seen, and if we subscribe to those impacts on climate change, they're likely to increase. Although Auckland Airport are doing a huge amount of work around ensuring that they can cope with those kinds of incidents. So look, I think it's sensible to have the optionality for if we can make that case in the application with the designation. In respect, I can't speak for Ohakea. Obviously, it's government owned. It's currently the alternate for many airlines into New Zealand, and there have been some challenges around their rescue fire category and their investment, but I don't have the knowledge to know exactly where they're at with that process. For us, it is a major, so there's a major investment. It's not only the extension to the runway, of course, it's the strengthening of the existing runway to cope if you were to consider wide-bodied. To consider alternates for narrow bodies, that could be stage one. Wide body would require a much more coordinated investment to accommodate taxiways, aprons, terminal, and the runway itself. We have a major overlay due in about 2030, and I think closer to that time there'll need to be some consideration and conversations with the board, potentially with the shareholders around what overlay we approach it with. So there could just be an overlay, or through a more significant works that we conduct on the runway at that point in time. So there are some natural gates to consider how we prepare.
So have we taken any proactive steps in terms of that stage one preparation of narrow body jet?
They started flying 6 weeks ago.
Oh, so, no, I mean in terms of resilience, have you?
Look, I think we are able to cope. I mean, our current infrastructure can cope with narrow-body jets, so that's not an issue. We've got more. I mean, remembering our runway currently is much longer than Wellington, Queenstown, in respect of accommodating narrow-body jets. So the current I think now the investment on the northern end of the terminal, the fact that we now can process through the border domestic jet screening is a step that we didn't even have sort of 2 months ago. So I think these are natural progressions towards being able, a few months ago, we would have jets land at Hamilton, Trans-Tasman, that were diverted, but we couldn't offload or process them.
Yeah.
Now we would be in a position that we could do that. So,
And if just quickly to answer your question, certainly the whole resilience issue is a major part of the conversations we're having with government and our broader discussions around the designation. So it is a significant factor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Huasa.
Kia ora Barry, kia ora Mark, kia ora Scott, kia ora Nicola, welcome back to the chamber. Just 4 quick, real quick part-I questions. My first question is, given that Perth has almost triple the amount of New Zealanders than the Gold Coast does, is there a potential of having flights to Perth from Hamilton? That's the first question.
no, not at this point. What I would say to you is that the work we've just commissioned has given us a clear view of the markets, both in Australasia, the Pacific, and New Zealand, that we could consider.
Kia ora.
Sorry, just to add that, obviously the partnership with Jetstar being part of the Qantas Group, once you connect into Sydney, you get the benefit of the Qantas Group connections, whether it be to London, or 90-minute connection to London, or anywhere in the Australian network.
Right, awesome. My second question is, when Moko and I were flying out to Christchurch 2 weeks ago, unfortunately there was flights that were either delayed or cancelled, and there was a whole busload of disgruntled travellers that had to be bussed up to Auckland. How do you ensure the customer experience in those sorts of situations?
Look, we are as frustrated as the customers, but look, this is a responsibility of the airline to make the decisions around how they will either bus, rebook those customers. So we don't have a direct role. Our role, though, is our regular meetings with the airlines, and for argument's sake, with Jetstar, we have a formal weekly stand-up meeting to review the prior week and any learnings, any opportunities. So there's constant engagement with the airlines, but the airlines are sovereign in terms of making the decisions.
Excellent. Staying close in communications. My third question is about the runway extension and what you mentioned about there's some landowners that are for, some landowners that are a little bit resistant because they might blight their land. What do you mean about blights?
Firstly, no, there's no one against.
Okay.
So this is simply a consultation process that we're working through. So when we say blight, we have landowners to the south of the runway, where if we were to lengthen the runway, we would have approach lighting constructed. So we have a designation that allows us to do that, which means that they can't use that land for any other purpose than potentially mowing the lawn or grazing, or so that's what when we talk about blight, that's the blight on their land. But we work with those landowners as to how they feel now about a further period, and if there are any concerns that they have. So it's very much consultation. They're not opposed at all.
Is there any kind of conversation should something like that happen for them, to them? Like, so if you know...
We're meeting with them regularly,
Oh, yeah.
even at the moment, so yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
And my last question is what kind of comms have you got going out to the public in terms of the losses that the airport has experienced? And we all know that's been nationwide. I mean, the same thing has happened for TGH and Waikato Taonui in terms of the loss of hotel occupancy. So, but the perception out there in the public is that there is a loss in the airport. They're not returning back to the city. How are you improving comms to the public to let them know what's going on?
I'm not aware that there is a particular feedback from the public about that. We've obviously made it, I think over many years, with the shareholders' support, it has been about firstly building resilience, so diversifying the group in order to protect the core aeronautical business, which I think we've done very successfully, and to build the assets of the company and build the balance sheet, again, which we have done very successfully.
We were at a Meet the Mayorals candidate evening the other
Right.
night, and it was a question that was asked of us.
Okay. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I think we've been taking with the agreement and consideration of the shareholders a long-term view of rebuilding and investing in the airport company for future returns that will be particularly driven out of development on the Precinct North land.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Huata. Councillor Muku, followed by Councillor Anna.
Kia ora, Mark. Thank you for your commentary. Those last particular statements in particular, you are successfully building the balance sheet. And so my question is, what is the dividend that's coming back to the shareholder off the back of successfully building the balance sheet?
Good question. We've indicated to the shareholders as we commenced the significant investment that was going to be necessary and resources necessary to bring international back to Hamilton, not just the terminal but other associated aeronautical investments, that the company would struggle over the first kind of couple of years of doing that in order to generate enough free cash in order to consider dividends. The board will consider that on a case-by-case basis. We have a history of paying a dividend to the shareholders, and we will want to get back to that again as quickly as we can, and we'll consider that. But in an environment where we are heavily investing, we are increasing debt, we've got to balance the understandable desire of the shareholders to see a dividend against that. But we will get back there as quickly as we can. The second point I'd make, and again we've discussed this in the past, is there is the dividend, the annual kind of free cash that we can distribute to the shareholders, but probably more importantly is the value that has been created for the shareholders. The increase in the balance sheet and the value of your 50% of the company has increased significantly. When Precinct North gets underway, there will be significant value created for the shareholders, and we need to have a conversation as to how that's made available back to the shareholders.
Is that something that we'll see in the next 12 months, or are we going to be waiting at least probably a couple of years?
In terms of the two things, in terms of the dividend, again, we'll look at that as soon as we can do. And again, I don't want to get ahead of I expect a slightly better trading environment that we're in at the moment, but we'll see how that goes. We'll get there as quick as we can. In terms of creating a level of development in Precinct North and having discussions around what happens with that value and how's that shared with the shareholders, that's probably 2 or 3 years out. You've got to actually start seeing it happen. Does that answer your question?
But you've told me
Not necessarily the answer you wanted, but
yeah,
does that
yeah,
answer your
you've told
question?
me at least a good 3 years out is what I heard.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, we can be having the conversation now, but again, we can't, you can't take value until it's there, and we need to stick to our strategy. But again, in terms of the dividend, we'll keep talking to you in terms of our ability to, the organisation's ability to provide a dividend as quickly as possible.
Our strategy, Council, we also have a strategy too. Our strategy is also to expect that we're going to get a dividend. And so when we're not getting those, then it's we've got to explain that. And so I guess I'm just reminding.
Yeah, and look, I totally understand it. And again, that was the basis of the conversations we had with council leaders when we committed to the business case for bringing Jetstar in, knowing that we had to move from a position of just being a domestic airport to being able to accommodate international. So, eyes wide open, open conversation. That we couldn't have our cake and eat it too. That was generally understood. I'll reiterate, we will move back to paying a dividend as quickly as we can.
Anna.
Thank you for your presentation. A slightly different tact. The 45,000 trees that you've planted, just interested in the maintenance program for that, and just any other further plans into the future to offset given the expansion. Yeah,
No,
thank
quite
you.
a cool little program.
Yeah, and look, if you get an opportunity, the council has been provided with a YouTube connection to what we've done there. But look, what I would say is that we have an obligation under our agreement settlement with the Environment Court to plant, which we've done on the first 11 hectares. We have another 4 to 5 hectares of land that we will plant subsequently. We also have an obligation in the formation of a trust, which we will do so over the next 12 months. Raoul and our partner in the development, which is the Yates family or Rukahia Property Limited, will equally have trustees. We've an obligation to manage that for 10 years, and then we will during that time there will be a handover, and it will be run as a trust on an in perpetuity basis. So that land is gifted into the trust, and the trust will then have the responsibility for maintaining it. We provide some seed funding for the first couple of years, Scott, and then the trust will seek, obviously, community grants and other ways to raise funds for the ongoing maintenance of the land.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation this morning. One quick question around the ongoing property strategy. Are you able to provide any, like a good summary, brief summary around what that looks like in terms of how much you're looking to sell versus lease to ensure that ongoing sustainability? I asked this a little bit last time, but just keen to get a good summary of where things are at right now with your thinking.
Sure. I mean, I'll start off with, I mean, that's what we're working through at the moment. We don't have, we understand the scenarios and the options available to us, but we haven't landed on what is going, there's too many different factors around that in terms of what's the right balance between selling and holding and generating revenue. But we're getting a lot closer, and Mark, the strategy we've been doing, that's coming through to the board, I think, next month.
Correct, Barry. And so not perhaps a lot to add here, other than I think we're very clear on both ensuring an in perpetuity income stream to the company, and therefore that helps to facilitate the conversation around significant dividends into the future back to the shareholders. So there will be a mix of develop and hold. This initial one is exactly that, so it's a 20-year lease with rights of renewal. So there'll be a develop and hold, there'll be a develop and sell some land, and there'll be a develop and sell. So the model that we originally conceptualised was really a third. The market will somewhat dictate how we how we give effect to that. But that's fundamentally, that's the kind of the theory, is that we will need to sell some land to help fund some of this development. Equally, there are options for the board to consider around future joint ventures, or how do we introduce equity if there's opportunities to develop in a faster mode than planned. So, but that's will be part of the strategy. I don't know if that
Yeah,
helps.
that's helpful, thank you. And I mean, are you then looking in the future out to further acquisitions and things, and it's an ongoing development process?
The board's open to sensible strategic acquisitions if there is opportunity to obtain more land that's nearby or tied up in the Southern Links type operation, then we would be open to that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cash.
Thank you. Just a quick one from me. I heard that you're on track with your developing the new strategy. You touched, Mark, on a report that was commissioned regarding the region and where opportunities may lie. We talked about Perth. You mentioned other destinations. Just question is, what next? Apart from the property development, are you allowed to speak to where those opportunities lie?
Look, I don't think it's appropriate in this forum at the moment, because look, the board have not seen these documents, so that's how fresh they are. So it'll be presented to the board in August. And then, look, I think there's also then a commercial sensitivity and overlay then around what we would want to say publicly around sort of opportunities into the future. And of course, as we've said before, many of these opportunities take years. I was talking recently to Christchurch Airport. One of their routes that has just come to fruition was a 7-year process. So, but we've just got to be very mindful of what we say publicly versus, but certainly we'll brief the shareholders through the AGM process and other forums as we settle on opportunities.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. We've had a number of questions. The airport is obviously a very interesting subject. I've just got a couple of very quick questions. I'm seeing a lot of jet tails out at the airport, which I always get very excited about. Can you give me a glimpse as to the type of economic generation heavy maintenance or B and C checks are having? Because it seems to have gone unsung. It's not just Jetstar I'm seeing.
Yeah, definitely, Councillor Wilson. Look, they primarily the aircraft are there, as you said, for heavy maintenance and long-term maintenance. So that the journey began when we were able to acquire that facility from previous tenant Air New Zealand, who disbanded the engineering during COVID, and relocate Menzies in there. They employ about 50 staff. And that probably number of contractors in that at the moment, it's probably increased to about 70. Now, not all those personnel are based in the region, but certainly sustaining sort of 40 or 50 full-time, fairly highly skilled labour to work on aircraft in that engineering space. And yeah, there's probably we've had 7 aircraft there lined up at different times.
And are you able to tell us what airlines are using it?
Yeah, by all means. So I guess it's not a secret when they paint their planes. So we've seen of late actually Solomon Airlines have been one of the busier operators in there. That's I guess part of having Menzies as a global operator. They're able to move aircraft around depending on needs. So those aircraft have been based in Brisbane and Auckland. They're able to come to Hamilton now. And then Airwork Group, you're aware that Airwork is probably in the media that they have been in receivership. A number of these aircraft are actually owned by lessors, so it's the lessors having the work done. And we've obviously seen Texel, which is a New Zealand family-owned freight business. That aircraft's been here for sort of quite extensive maintenance. They've got a fleet of 6 of them around sort of Asia Pacific.
Has the airport taken steps to ensure that if this business was to grow, there was sufficient space and tarmac facilities?
So part of that, as I mentioned earlier, that taxiway expansion, we've strengthened the taxiway, we've also widened it. So we've got the former flight school apron can accommodate those. You're aware that we've also got quite a bit of land, if you're driving down State Highway 3, but where the grass runway is, there's another 30 hectares there the airport can develop as well for aeronautical use, and on Precinct North, and it wasn't in today's pack, but we have shown videos and renders in the past of how we could interface that with the freight and logistics as well. So again, aeronautical facilities are quite complementary to that sort of large aircraft.
Thank you very much. I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Really appreciate coming along. Great update, exciting times. Nicola, sorry we've made you wait so long. It's always hard to follow the airport.
I'll follow them up later. Tēnā koutou katoa. It's lovely to see you all.
Kia ora.
It's kind of a little bit sobering to think that the whole year is past already, and I'm here providing a 12-month report. It seems like it's gone in a blink of an eye. I know that we are now pressed for time. You were tight on your agenda anyway, so I'm going to skip through quite a lot, but still cover some of the salient points because I know you've got the presentation in your pack. We can go straight to the next slide, please. Whoever's got the slides. Thank you. So a new way of just showing our KPIs, and look, if I could show gradients of green, there is one there that I'd really like to pull your attention to, and that's the business events goal. There was to maintain 6% market share of events held across the country, and we've blitzed that at 8.6% market share. So instead of maintaining, we've grown that market share, and that's quite encouraging considering the new event centres that have come online in Christchurch and Wellington over that period. There are two red ones there, and I'm not going to gloss over those, but I will talk to them. Of course, the first one was known fairly early in the year, was Waitomo and Aotearoa withdrawing. So we knew that fairly early. That was a red before we even really kick-started the year. The other one there is the guest nights, market share of domestic guest nights. We'd set a growth target there to grow from 3.6 to 4.2% market share. While we didn't achieve that, we have maintained our market share. So we're still fairly proud of that, even though it's red. It is good to have at least maintained. What we're seeing when we're comparing some of the spend data with those bed nights is that there is a slight shift starting to come through, and we'll see this in the next 6-month report, of more overnight stays rather than day visits down into our region. So we'll be able to talk more into that in the next 6-month report. It's just starting to show the green shoots of change in the data right now. I'll head on through to the next one. Thank you. While these numbers that I've given you here are more around our outputs rather than outcomes, they're not part of our KPIs, they're not part of our agreements, but it's just a really good way to showcase some of the work that our team have been undertaking and those outputs. The big number there, the 38 million, so that's our digital, our marketing reach through our marketing, our digital and our PR activities, the number of people who have seen our activities and our content. That's up from 24 million last year. So while we've had a bit of a topsy-turvy start to the year, we've actually achieved a really lot of outputs there on that slide. That's the only one I'm going to pick out for right now, just in keeping through, because I've picked up some answers to some of your questions on the previous discussion that we'll dig into. Head on through to the next Get Lost slide, please. So you recall when I was here 6 months ago, I talked about a fairly little bit of a cheeky campaign we were going to come out with inviting our Aucklanders to come on down and get lost in the mighty Waikato. The campaign results are there for you, and look, everyone looks at results differently. So the ones that really resonated for me that I'll share, they're up there anyway, is the CTR click-through rate of 12.99%. Now that's against an industry standard for the travel sector of only 0.9%. So when you see an advert on your Facebook, your Stuff, your Google, and you click through to that advert, that's your click-through rate. So at 12.99%, we'll call it 13%, against 0.9% of a standard industry rate, well achieved, well above average. The 99% viewability, I had to ask a little bit about what that meant. So when we see an advert that pops up on the top of all of our activity when we're on, this was the TV on demand, an advert comes on before we watch something, I know I'm a bugger for it, I push skip, but this means that 99% of people viewed that video. They did not skip that video. So that's pretty phenomenal results. So really pleased and proud of those two particular results there. Every metric we looked at achieved great results. I'll head on through. This is probably a lot of, ties into what Mark's been talking about with the Australian activations, and Councillor Maxine, your question on what we can do to support. So our work in the Australian market, all of this is in your pack, so I'm not going to go on too much about what each of these images mean. It's capturing all of what we've done in the last 6 months and some of those great opportunities that we captured and ran with, hosting Sam Mack in region, some of our influencers that we've hosted, Haz and Loz, Janice Fung, all in your pack. What I have heard anecdotally, and it's not a data set, but we've heard from a friend of a friend who was surfing in Raglan. 2 guys came and asked him, how do I get out to the left-hand surf break? They'd landed on the tarmac in Hamilton 65 minutes before. Tarmac to surf, 65 minutes. Now, nowhere else you can do that. They were coming back into Hamilton for the night, so it's a win-win for everybody. But that's the type of really great results that we're seeing through that Australian activation and through our Jetstar flights arriving. I'm going to go to the next one, please. Throughout the year, we always do some photo shoots, and sometimes, we always have some fantastic photos. We always have fantastic photos. Sometimes you get some absolute gems that come through, and this year we're really proud of those 2 pictures in particular, Hamilton Gardens and of course our awa. Beautiful day obviously helps, and there's been some beautiful images that we've now got available in our image library for our own activities and for the city's communications as well. Next up, please. These were videos until I PDF'd it to send it in, but we have captured a lot of video content this year as well, and I did provide in the report a link to our new brand video, so hopefully it's only 1 minute long, so hopefully you've had a minute to look at that. And out of that we created some short videos for our social media activities. So 3 particular in Hamilton, and then other pieces of Hamilton blended through our other regional stories as well. Great new content coming out. Next one up, please. Sorry, I'm really talking really fast. Look, we love it when our content goes viral, and we've had some great success with viral content and really capturing the audience this year. These ones in particular I wanted to showcase to you was the images, the new images of Hamilton Gardens. Within just a few hours, it had reached 71,000 people just from one organic post. Not boosted, not paid for, just a post on our social media. The video that we put on our social media of the Jetstar arriving Te Awamutu Primary School with the Kapahaka group, that went absolutely gangbusters with 297,000 views, shared 241 times. So it really captured people's attention and was shared, and great cut through there. Balloons over Waikato, so we had our own videographer at the event, the morning liftoff, and then doing some balloon to balloon and drone footage of the Hamilton balloon there. So while our videographer posted it to his own content, his own Instagram, he's also the New Zealand ambassador for GoPro. So GoPro New Zealand picked that up, and that's the post on the right. So it's all of those interlinks, right, that our footage goes broader and has expanded the audience. 185,000 views of that one on the right, and that was just only a matter of hours. Regional Events Fund, so this has been over 4 years, so it's probably gone a little bit under the radar until, we talked a lot about it when it started, and then it's kind of just been ticking along, some great work, but now the results have come through as that work has come to a completion. Over the 4 years, remembering we were the lead entity for Waikato, Taupo, Rotorua and Ruapehu, so working with those RTOs as well. The 3.75 million went to supporting 48 events directly, attendance there of 532,000, and also other events, many community events through our capability building work. And you can see there that $220 million of economic benefit has gone back into the 4 regions. So 3.75 million of event activation turns into $220 million of economic benefit. We can go to the next slide as a hold because I've got some other things to share. Tapping into Councillor McIndoe's questions around international arrivals. For Mark, I've just quickly looked at the data. Yes, we are at 87% of international arrivals since pre-COVID. Right at the moment, North America are sitting at 105% return. China is at 59% and Australia is at 95%. So prior to COVID, 2019, there was really strong connectivity, particularly North America and China. And since opening our borders a little bit later than some other countries, we've missed that connectivity and rescheduling flights and getting slots back into the landing time schedules and airports has been challenging. So we have lacked and missed that gap and that opportunity. The Tourism Export Council, and I say we, the broader we, not here in Kirikiriroa. Tourism Export Council are predicting March 27 is when we'll see 100% return of those international visitors. So it's just straight out of the data that we get from Tourism Export Council. So hopefully that answers some of your questions earlier. What Scott alluded to for Jetstar connecting with Qantas, just another little snippet of information for you. To get to New Zealand from London at the moment, the quickest route is through Qantas to Sydney to Hamilton. So for your London-based whānau, straight through Jetstar, Qantas, Jetstar, straight into Kirikiriroa is the quickest route. The other piece of information, and given that my colleagues talked long enough, I can share this now. It was embargoed to this morning. Air New Zealand hosting the mayoral forum this morning. That's where Mayor Paula is, of course. They've just announced and released the Air New Zealand regional event sponsorship that they've put together. So that's announced this morning. It will be through regional tourism organisations recommending and pitching an event for them to fund in each of their 20 regions that they fly to. 2 events are being announced today, while the other RTOs will be applying for the funding. The 2 events being announced is one here in Kirikiriroa. The Hamilton Art Festival, Toi Ora ki Kirikiriroa, will be one of the first 2 events announced today. So Mayor Paula will be hearing that. It was embargoed to an hour ago, so hot off the press. Through you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That was a very good update. Colleagues, do we have questions of Nicola?
Nice.
Councillor Tim.
Thank you. Nicola, thank you for coming back to me with clarification of those figures. That was very helpful to hear. And thanks for your report overall. It's just a minor issue, but I'm just wondering what you, in your particular role, what feedback you get on the introduction of visitor charges at Hamilton Gardens. We know that we're bringing in some revenue. It's not covering the cost, but I'm just wondering if you get any anecdotal comments about it.
So through trends, attending trends, and so with travel trade, they're surprised it took so long to introduce the fee.
Yeah.
It's absolutely warranted. It's a fantastic experience. No trouble at all with that market, with that sector.
Yeah.
The only grumbling we hear is probably the same grumbling you hear of our nearer neighbours.
Yes.
I do not hear any upset from anywhere else.
And I guess I'm declaring where I'm coming from on this issue because I was an advocate for the introduction of them. Do they still express surprise at how cheap it is?
Many do, certainly from the further afield markets. Yeah.
So you're working perhaps with H3 and others on some combo packages where we could maximise potential for introductions of charges both for the zoo and the gardens to make it an attractive
Absolutely.
1 or
Look,
2 day package.
packaging and selling to that travel trade as package deals is certainly always on our radar.
Very good. Delighted to hear that.
Thank you.
Councillor Huata.
Kia ora, Nicola. Thank you for your dedication, commitment and passion in such a tough industry. From our learnings from COVID and the devastating impact it had on tourism, just thinking forward, should something like that happen again, fingers crossed, what kind of resilience in terms of tourism do we have, and thinking about the possibility of introducing more robustly virtual reality options of engaging in tourism?
Yeah, look, through the COVID period supporting our industry, there were a lot of people providing tourism experiences who didn't always have a business plan, had never really entered it as a pure business model, they'd entered it as a passion. And I think that COVID has taught people to have a robust business plan, understand their cash flow and understand their markets a lot better. So I think our surviving sector is a lot better prepared and a lot more business-minded and a business-savvy way. In terms of building resilience, I think that will help them. The introduction of VR and AI and all of those virtual experiences is still, there's a lot more available now than there ever was before. There's still a slight nervousness or trepidation of how much do you put into that virtual space as opposed to encouraging someone to come to your place. So there is getting that balance right, and there's certainly some movements around that now with providing teasers, but not too much. So there is definitely discussions happening all the time in that space. Thank you. Does that help? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cash.
Oh, thank you. Kia ora. Just, you touched on the Australian activation and the use of influencers. I was made aware that there were some prominent Chinese influencers visiting every now and then, and I was just curious if you're connected to that Red Note Chinese social media market or not.
We were prior, but we haven't been so much this current year. We've been very, very, very targeted on the Australian market. If we're approached for support, we'll absolutely support, but we have been really quite honed into the Australian market because of the flights.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Okay.
Councillor Moko.
Kia ora, Nicola. Have you been doing much work with Tainui Waka Tourism?
Not so much with Tainui Waka Tourism, but with Tainui Waikato Tainui themselves, so supporting the Tamatatini bid, and we've offered to be a part of that committee to support with the city and regional hostability, and certainly with Rangariri and Les Taiu as well. So I haven't seen Craig and Leanne for a little while, but I think they've been offshore.
So you wouldn't have been able to attend their, they had a...
On the Sunday, yes, the haka, yes, I
Oh,
was
you were
yes, I was
there?
I was
Yeah,
there.
I'm keen to hear your... I
was
actually
there.
enjoyed it.
It was a
wondering-
fantastic afternoon, and you know, I'd love them to turn some of that activity that they're doing into a full commercial experience. It's beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Excellent. That's it that I see. I've just got a couple of questions. I'm really excited that we now have 7-day-a-week Te Huia service to Auckland. What is Tourism Waikato doing to aggressively market that service in Auckland? First question. And as part of that strategy, are you also combining the fact that people could open jaw with a Jetstar service, so they could fly into Hamilton and then take Te Huia and depart from Auckland, just that flexibility?
Firstly, Te Huia, we do have itineraries already developed on our website available for arrive via Te Huia, do this, go here, see this, and depart again via Te Huia. So that's already available on our website. Our next rollout of Get Lost into the Auckland market is coming for spring, and that will be able to talk and lean into that Te Huia experience as well, because we do target the Aucklanders quite aggressively. So it will blend into that messaging. The Jetstar Te Huia, actually personally I haven't looked at the timing of them arriving. The linkage between Te Huia train and Jetstar plane is a gap. So that we would need to do some work on some shuttle service or bus service or something to get from the city to the airport.
Because I think Jetstar comes in at 10.
Around the 11 o'clock, 11:15.
11, and there is Sarah will know, isn't there a Te Huia at 2 on most days? Anyway, I won't get into
But
the
yes.
I'm just raising that.
I've written it there, thank you.
The only other question is, I know Jetstar has IFE via mobile phone on their flights. You can log in. Is Tourism Waikato advertising on the Jetstar IFE?
So we've got video content on the planes for viewing. We, through the Tourism Boost Fund from the central government with Rotorua, etc., we did a takeover of the entire Jetstar website and mobile services.
Okay.
It's quite costly, so we'll see how we can go with budgets to do that again. But we have had a presence there, yes.
Okay, excellent, thank you. All right, I have no other questions. Oh, sorry, Councillor Anna.
Sorry, just
That's all
quickly. I was just thinking while you were talking for some reason about public perceptions of safety and how they may be impacting at all. We've just had a lot of news lately around particular things happening, and I'm just curious, and also it's been ongoing. Just a reflection from you on how perceptions of safety here in Kirikiriroa impact.
I think the media attention of Hamilton, Kirikiriroa with the All Blacks evening certainly painted not a very nice picture, did it? We haven't heard that so much from visitors at the moment, but certainly the media attention of the sad situation that occurred in our city that night doesn't help, but things happen all over the country too. Right. We're not alone.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So, colleagues, we're about to go to a break after this item. So, recommendation on page 15, staff's recommendation to receive the report for the airport and Hamilton Waikato Tourism, moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor Huata. Councillor Tim, would you like to debate?
Personally, I don't think there's any great need for debate. We've had very good discussion and answers to the questions, so no, I'm happy just to move the reports.
Right, so the motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Colleagues, two things. Blair has organised the video links that Mark from the airport referred to be sent to you. So you should now have those videos. And two, we'll have a break for, say, 10 minutes and coming back at about 11:05. Cool, thanks. to item 8, the General Manager's report. However, first of all, Emma wins the prize of an extra Kit Kat for being the quickest back in the chamber. Please pass this on to Councillor Emma. Please note, colleagues, I have 2 other Kit Kats that will be rewarded. I have a sneaky feeling I know who took that.
No, I took the one that was over here, but I did not.
So he's admitted his guilt online. Okay. General Manager's report. Blair, we're in your hands.
Thank you, Chair Ewan. I'm happy to take my report read, and there are some interesting stats in there in terms of just our progress against the outcomes. What I did want to just briefly touch on was further to Chair Ewan's report around the University of Waikato Med School, and just again acknowledge the leadership of Professor Quigley at the university in terms of that tremendous outcome for the Waikato. And maybe just touch on a couple of stats around the med school in an economic development context, because I think we need to understand this in terms of significance. So the value of the med school investment is going to be $230 million of capital spend, which will be a combination of around $150 million from the University of Waikato and or philanthropic funders, with $83 million from the government. The university has demolished the old B block up on Hillcrest Road, and that is going to be the location of where the main med school building will be located. And I'm pleased to say that the university has been in active discussions with our consenting team for a period of time around that development. So we are well engaged with the university team on that. The cost benefit for the University of Waikato was 1.99, meaning that for every $1 invested in the med school project, it returns $1.99 of benefit back, which is a substantial positive outcome. And from an economic perspective, the 1 in 4 jobs in Hamilton across the health sector and education, so 25% of our workforce is in this space. So the med school is directly contributing to that line of work. We see that, and obviously the benefits around not only the social benefits in terms of GPs and healthcare, but also the capital investment, the multiplier effect of the substantial $230 million spend in developments, job creation, the economic activity from students and staff, and I guess the additional benefits to the university in terms of not only the university's profile and ranking as a university with a med school, but also the, I guess, reputational benefits for the city and the research opportunities that come from having a med school, a fully formed med school as part of the university. So just want to acknowledge again the university's leadership and the substantial positive benefit for the city and the region of this development, because noting that there will be training of students not only at the Hamilton hospital campus, but also at other locations around the Waikato as the med school and the graduates do their training. So with those comments, Chair Ewan, I'm happy to take any questions on that or the
Did you want to highlight anything out of the outcomes tracker? Or is it?
Look, I'm happy to take questions. I think it's quite self-sufficient.
Thank you. Questions? I see no questions. The recommendation on Councillor Tim.
Back there. But yeah, under the targeted outcomes, Blair, I'm just interested to note the ongoing progress by the program to have 75 in-depth sessions with businesses from key growth sectors, advancing from 36 meetings to 49 meetings. Can you just give a little bit more flesh on that particular stat so that we've got a good idea of what you see the tangible outcomes of increasing that number of meetings will be? What's the core objectives there?
Yeah, look, I might invite Arif just to quickly come up, and that's actually obviously a subject of later agenda items as well, but Arif leads our engagement with our businesses.
Good morning, councillors. Thank you for that question. When we refer to meetings, it's not just a one-off conversation, it's in-depth. The way we've structured those meetings is to really try and uncover a lot of those insights. The 75 in-depth business meetings is about individual businesses that we're meeting with regularly. Now, across a year, that might be, over the last 2 years, we've consistently met that requirement, that target, and we've gone above and beyond that. But essentially, what that's communicating to you is the depth of the work and the number of businesses that we're trying to engage with on a regular basis.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, it's encouraging to hear that that's happening.
And you'll see some quite extensive information across the agenda.
I'll speak more to that shortly, Councillor.
I look forward to that.
Councillor Maxine.
Thank you. Sorting out the comms. In terms, Blair, of the medical school proposal, and I guess beyond any commitment that we're making in terms of helping them with their building consents, etc., has there been any approach or suggestion from the university that the city would become one of the philanthropics or in any way be contributing to the $150 million of funding that the university will be seeking?
Not to my knowledge. So our involvement is as a both a regulatory body, so working with them in a very constructive, positive manner in terms of consenting, and obviously a voice of support, but certainly nothing in terms of financial contributions.
Thank you, that's comforting.
Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Blair, given that the med school and the hospital will be working closely together with people moving between the two, has there been any thought to how the council could assist with better parking around the hospital?
That's a great question, one that I'm probably not qualified to answer. I'm happy to take that offline and refer it to our team.
Yep, thank you.
Right, colleagues, I see no other questions. Page 52, I'm looking for someone to move staff recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Andrew, seconded by Councillor Tim. I'll put that motion. Any debate? Councillor, I'll just let the mover go first. Andrew, did you have any debate?
On the parking issue, given that it's a hot topic at the moment and there's already problems around that area, and the efficiency of a bus route between the university and the hospital might not suit student timetables and things like that, and getting the numbers. So unfortunately, use of cars is probably likely to occur, and it will become quite difficult given the lack of parking at the moment. So it is something we should really be thinking about to just get the whole system working.
Councillor Cash.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak very briefly about the medical school and the announcement and the success that that not just the university, but success for our city. But also wanted to do a quick plug because medical school is a huge announcement, obviously, nationally with our GP shortage and the help that it will be providing to our primary healthcare sector. But not many people know that it's the entire division of health that is on a growth trajectory at the university. And in fact, the pharmacy school will be enrolling over 50 students next year. So you've got pharmacy, nursing, midwifery, and then medicine coming through in a couple of years. The other aspect is that in terms of developing the medical school building, the infrastructure is being designed to cater for all disciplines and not just medicine. So you've got this integrated approach to primary healthcare, not just siloed into GP land, which is really exciting for places like Hamilton, but more importantly, our rural communities. So I just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
It's very interesting. Councillor Tim.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Firstly, just agree with Councillor Andrew about the concern about parking up around the hospital. I mean, it's obviously not something we can solve anytime soon, but it is a very real issue for people who go to the hospital, and often they're under a lot of stress because of the reason for being there. So anything that can be done to help solve that would be good. But I just want to thank you, Blair, for your comments about the med school. Can I also acknowledge everybody in the council, particularly Mike Bennett and his team, for the support that they have given to enable us to get there, because you're absolutely right. The potential economic benefit for our region is huge. I did say this earlier under the Chair's report, but you've made the comment quite rightly that the potential for the university to rise quite significantly in the international rankings is very apparent and obviously very exciting. Agree with the comments that Councillor Kesh has just made. It's not just about GPs, it is pharmacy, midwifery, all the sorts of different programs that our health department up there is offering. So I just repeat what I said earlier. I think this is one of the most significant things that's happened in the economic development space in our region in decades, and we should be really, really proud of what has been announced, grateful to everyone who's helped to bring it about, and let's just bring it on.
Councillor Louise.
Morena e te whānau. I just thought, as a regular hospital user, not as someone who works there anymore, but someone who has regular outpatient appointments there, I have taken the Comet almost every time and have been really impressed by every time I come out of my appointment, there is the Comet there waiting for me, and I hop straight on with almost no wait. And I've not timed that. Like, that is a complete reflection of the fast frequent service that the Comet provides, but also the Orbiter is a route that goes between the hospital and the university, and is one of the more direct routes that we have. So just as someone who uses the hospital almost weekly and who is a bus user, I just wanted to provide a small amount of advocacy for our friends at Regional Council with those two routes.
Colleagues, it's been moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Tim. We've had our debate. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Excellent. We're ploughing along. Colleagues, strategic and general update. My good friend Mike... Greg, hello.
Hello. Good morning, Chair and Councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'll briefly update you on aspects in the report relating to business engagement and Hamilton's economic performance. So we've touched on it, but we met 49 businesses this year. Now these conversations help us understand how to support these businesses' growth aspirations and policy, and ensure the right infrastructure is in place. I acknowledge there's been some questions about its value at times, and HCC does invest in this program. But this program of engagement is critical, and it's strategic. The large majority of growth in jobs, investments and capital investment comes from expansion and retention of existing businesses. And our engagement with them, as well as supporting those growth aspirations, provides improved responsiveness for council to address their operational concerns, and I think that shouldn't be underestimated. Moving on to the economic side of it, the Hamilton Economic Report was published recently, the 2024 report. So that's a one-of-a-kind report in New Zealand, and a valuable resource. It's been shared with elected members, businesses, property developers and the public. And if you ask ChatGPT or Copilot about the Hamilton economy, it'll start quoting from that report, which is it's a positive sign in this world of AI. In terms of the economy showed resilience in 2024, with growth in populations, jobs, businesses and housing, despite national recessionary pressures. However, GDP has declined and construction has slowed. Outlook for this year, for the coming year, is cautiously optimistic. we think, with falling interest rates and a focus on enabling business confidence and housing delivery. I'll now hand over to Arif and Martin to speak about our business engagement work and opportunities we're seeing. And our Economic Development Manager and author of the report, Mr. Mike Bennett, is also here and happy to take questions. And after that, I'm happy to speak to the economic update section. So thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Arif and Martin, welcome. I'm in your hands.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Morena councillors, I'm Martin Brock, the Business Opportunities Advisor. It's been 6 months on the job for me. It's been a great learning experience, and I've been able to bring an outsider's perspective and a marketing lens to the economic development team. And I've been very lucky with my timing to be involved with some exciting economic development projects. The report outlines these projects that we've been working on. But one example to touch upon is the Make It Here project at the Hamilton Airport. It was a really good example of being able to showcase our region from an economic perspective and opportunities for business and for people. And it was a great opportunity to lead a project and to work with the other shareholder councils. A really good example of bringing us all together, all on the same boat, and showed how strong our relationships were to get this project done, not only with the other shareholder councils, but also with the airport. We've a very strong relationship with them, and we're able to get this done very quickly, without any major hurdles, and with a lot of trust. And as part of that, we partnered with our Hamilton company FTN, who make some amazing electric motorbikes, and they have got a display up there of their Street Dog electric bike. And for them, they're expanding into Australia, so we were able to get both of these projects done simultaneously and completed in time for the international flights. So yeah, the airport's fantastic. I recommend having a look out there. I am a bit of a plane spotter, and I'm keeping tabs on things. And there's been 22 different Jetstar planes into Hamilton as of today. So it's not the same one, it's lots of different planes. Thank you. I'll hand over there.
Great stats. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is important.
It has been really fascinating sitting next to Martin and watching him sort of track everything, and you're getting a lot of great insight. Good morning, councillors. Thank you, Chair Ewan and Deputy Chair Maria, for the opportunity to speak here today. The report, the Employer Insight reports, cover off the key insights, but I want to briefly highlight what it's signalling at a broader level, and just briefly cover that off. The businesses we've spoken to this year continuing to operate in an environment of uncertainty, varying levels. But the consistent theme I see across the board is that they're deeply invested in finding solutions. Now that could look like developing new products, exploring new markets, seeking out those new avenues. For me, that duality is important because it truly reflects an economy that is resilient, responsive, and continuously adapting to changing situations. It's a good story for Hamilton and speaks highly of the businesses we have here. Coming back to the report and the insights included, they shouldn't be viewed in isolation. It offers a local lens, yes, but when paired with the economic data that Greg shared and Tiki shares, along with the work of our analytics team, it provides us with a multi-dimensional view of our economy. Together, it's more than just data. It's giving us context. It's capturing the pulse of our business community and signals the direction that our economy is heading. So all together. Moving on from my business meetings and through the work that I'm doing, I regularly hear the same message from businesses. It's good to know that council's in the room paying attention and willing to work with us. For me, that feedback reflects something deeper than just appreciation. It's signalling trust that has not been built through surveys or one-off engagement. It comes from real conversations, real presence, and our long-term commitment to being visible and responsive to businesses. And for me, that's a reminder that consistency builds credibility. Greg touched on this earlier, but our role as economic development has also evolved when it comes to business relationships. For me, the business engagement isn't just about listening, as it was for the first year, building those relationships. Now it's translating into, now it's all about translating those relationships and insights into action within council. We're increasingly working with our colleagues in transport planning, informing on community initiatives, and guiding other priorities and programs within council wherever we can to add value. It is a meaningful shift, and it's exactly where we want to be. Ensures we are well positioned to support the businesses who are engaged with council on a variety of operational challenges, and further help businesses maintain their momentum in their growth and investment in Hamilton. Thank you, and I think we'll take some questions if there's any.
Colleagues, I've got some questions if there's none from the floor. Councillor Anna, go ahead.
Thank you. It's great to hear of the relationships being developed. Just a question, like other group that I consider to be our relationship experts in council are the community development team. So I'm just interested in how you might be working together.
Yes. Now we enjoy a close relationship with them. There's an important difference in that we're not always talking to the same stakeholders in the same communities, but where there is that overlap, we don't hesitate to ask for each other's help. It's not a day-to-day collaboration. However, when the opportunity does come up, like for example, welcoming communities, that's where we've worked together in the past. We were able to connect them in with businesses, real stories of people who've moved here, and then provide feedback on what that experience is firsthand from employees who are coming here and work closely with them. But again, we've got different objectives, but when that opportunity arises, we don't hesitate. We work very closely with them and enjoy a close relationship.
Yeah, I imagine you're the team that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the team that has a sight on opportunities, and they have sight on people without opportunities. So yes, that would be the possibility, I guess, would
Definitely,
you say?
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Could you expand on New Zealand Tech, the Tech Week 25? It seems a pretty significant initiative. Could you just expand on that?
I think I'll let Mike or Martin speak on that.
Yeah, it was an opportunity to bring together the tech community. I think it does, in the Waikato, it does fly under the radar. So we wanted to do something that was, really lit a flame that was different from anything done before in Tech Week in the Waikato. And the way we had it set up at Winning at the Waikato, what we called it at the PA at the University of Waikato, hadn't been done before. There was no PowerPoint. We got together real Waikato people to talk about their stories, and a lot of it was to facilitate networking. So we had students there that were invited along. We had all sorts of people from the community, and we got very positive feedback as well, which was really good.
Yeah, I'll just add to that from what I've heard from businesses is the event was really well received. It was unique in the way of its format, its layout, and a lot of the tech businesses I've spoken to since are looking forward to the next one, and they hope that we keep building that momentum on it. It was our first time running a Tech Week event. It was the flagship event for the Waikato, and look forward to carrying that on.
Excellent, thank you. I've got another question, and I don't know if it's to you, Greg, or to Mike, and it's just about the Hamilton Annual Economic Report. Did I hear you correct that we're the only city that does that?
No, other cities do economic reports, but I think that one, if you look across the main centres and you just look at the depth of it and how it, you know, relates back to all our construction, all our development activity, plus the demographics, etc., I'd say it's easily the most comprehensive.
Right. And how does that help businesses and the community in Hamilton, us going to the length of investing and doing that sort of in-depth analysis? What's the practical outcome?
Well, I think the first answer is if, you know, as the city authority, you know, I think there's some responsibility to you know, communicate, especially when many of the things in it come from our data, like, you know, all of our consenting data and all the rest of it. So I feel there's, you know, responsibility to put good information out there. How is it used? I think it's, well, I know that it's used across many domains. So it's used by property developers, it's used by the media, it's used by general public. It's if people are interested in what their economy is and what makes it tick. You know, it has all that informative basis. And then I think for elected members, there's some real strategic value in there about if you're making decisions about, you know, where to invest or, you know, where are your productive assets. I mean, there's many things. So I think it has a wide range, value across a wide range of areas.
Thank you. Excellent. All right, gentlemen. So, Greg, did you want to cover any more in terms of the economic update slides? Oh, sorry. And while you're deciding that, I've got a couple of questions from one from Councillor Andrew and then one from Councillor Anna.
Yeah. So could you talk a bit about the impact of migration at the moment? So we've been the fastest growing city for a couple of years now, but net migration has fallen from record highs 2 years ago of 140,000 to 10-year lows now of 15,000 in the May statistics. And also internal migration, like are we getting people still coming in from Auckland? What's the impact on our economy?
I'll speak to the anecdotal feedback I'm getting from businesses and their experiences. When it comes to migration, there's a few subsectors within manufacturing that there is a bit of shortage of skilled workers, which migration can fill. They're working with immigration on how to tweak the current settings and get those people in, because that has changed and that is causing some problems for them. In terms of the brain drain to Australia, that it doesn't come up in conversation as much. However, there are examples of it comes up. The area where it most comes up is in the tech sector, where some employees are choosing to go overseas. It's better pay, better opportunity. But that said, there are stories where people have moved over back here. Either they've done a boomerang trip, so they've moved over, and then 2 years later they've come back, or they've relocated permanently from another country. Internal migration, I hear it a lot. People moving from Christchurch, moving down from Auckland. It's becoming easier and easier to attract talent to Hamilton. There are some businesses who choose to have hybrid working spaces up in Auckland, just in case that's an issue. But by and large, no one's really highlighted that as a huge barrier for them. The main the tech sectors where talent's the biggest growth enabler. That's where these discussions primarily happen. Generally, they're quite positively speaking, but their message is clear: don't let off the gas. We need to keep investing in our talent attraction efforts. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Councillor
Anna.
Thank you. Just a quick question, and I was having a look at some of the work you've been doing. The links you provided were great. What I thought I noticed was that maybe and this is a question, was maybe a lack of, that it's a city council initiative, like Tech in the Triangle, that we are heavily invested in it. And I'm just wondering, could we make more of that, given it is a ratepayer funded thing? so that our community knows about it and that City Council is behind it?
Yeah, I'll take that. Thank you for the question. It actually is primarily funded almost exclusively by businesses. So we, I'll say talent, but we provide the initiative and the engine room for it. So certainly council's invested in its success in terms of our, top 6 inches, so the brain power and the effort, but the funding to do it comes from partners. So a lot of the businesses who see the value and contribute to it. It's run by a trust, Cultivate Trust, but also the university. So for that Winning from the Waikato event, they were massive partners. Hiko Hub and Roseanne Ellis and the team there were completely in partnership and heavy lifters on executing that event. So, but point taken, I think for us, we view it as an opportunity to have input and insight into how it positions our place for the tech sector. So if you go on techinthitron.com, a lot of those stories through RF's work surfaces these really interesting businesses like RML and others. So we coordinate with the writers and the photographers that they pay for and help guide them in to find these really interesting stories to surface and tell about. So it's a bit like we get the uplift contribution of the ideas and shaping the stories, but really it's those businesses that contribute to it that help fund it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Huata.
Oh, kia ora kōrua, Morena. Arif, just quickly, when you mentioned that there's a lack of certain skills locally to fill various positions, do you have a snapshot of what those skills are? And are we working with education providers to build that capacity?
Thank you, Deputy Chair. The snapshot is purely from the businesses I've spoken to, and then they're largely in the stainless steel metal fabrication. And the other big one is aircraft manufacturing, but we have the only aircraft manufacturer in New Zealand, so that is going to continue to be a national shortage, and they're working on that. The other shortage, which seems to be a long-term one, is in the logistics sector, where there is going to be a big driver shortage over the next 10 years. The industry owns that. The industry acknowledges that it is their responsibility to tweak something. It is not an appealing career for many, and they're owning that responsibility. When it comes to workforce development, there are efforts through various agencies. We have not primarily worked in that space. However, I do regularly connect businesses who are keen to engage on that with the right parties here locally. We're quite lucky to have a good network of businesses and business support like that. And primarily my role is to connect those people to it and then proactively do that. So.
Thank you.
Councillor Emma.
Thank you, Chair. Just with the announcement of the medical school and our success in the tech sector that you've highlighted well throughout the report, are we looking for opportunities to attract more health tech companies? I know we have like CBS already in Hamilton with the data focus, but are we looking to leverage this announcement to attract new business and support the wider health sector?
Thank you, Councillor. I imagine that there will be a lot of interest in that. This news is still rather fresh. Up until late last year, still a bit of uncertainty as to whether it's going to go ahead or not. CBS is a really good example. They're making a huge splash on a global scale. And I don't have a straight answer for that right now. I imagine that with the medical school here, there will be a business community that's sort of attached to it. And it's not just the medical school, there's the research element, there's the training, the expertise that we're going to gain as a region, the talent. All of that will have ramifications and positive stories that will domino later on. But Mike and I have already started talking about that and looking at where else does this add value. Similarly to the airport discussion, is how does this impact businesses? We're looking at the med school as well, looking at, okay, what are the knock-on effects to this? And we're early in that process and look forward to sharing that with you as we sort of uncover more.
Excellent, thank you for your proactive work in that space. Secondly, just picking up the Waikato screen section of the report, it speaks about $29 benefit for every dollar. And they want for more funding. Is the feedback from them that we're actively losing film projects to other areas or regions, or are they just wanting it to grow that potential?
I might ask Greg or Mike to answer that. I had little to do with that project specifically.
Sorry.
Through the chair, I'd say the main reason is that it will, without the funding there, they have a limited ability to attract, projects, or at least promote projects that benefit Hamilton. So we met with them, had couple of quite productive conversations. I mean, they are quite an extensive, although very small, because they are in the business of improving visibility for location destinations for the movie thing. But they're quite a critical part of that process, and so just ensuring that they have the ability to continue to do that. And then when these movies land, I think Minecraft is a good example. They estimated 850,000 in local impact to Hamilton. That small contribution was seen as appropriate and a good investment.
Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Muko.
Tēnā koe. Do we have a standing relationship with Wintec around how we might be able to meet that shortfall in the labour market?
I'll be honest, that's a blind spot for my work right now. It's been difficult to nail down a specific contact. They've had so much change over the last 3 years. However, it's still a priority for me as now as they come back into being a standalone organisation to rebuild that relationship with them, just like we have with university, just like we have with Te Wananga o Aotearoa as well. So it remains a focus. I apologise, I can't say yes, we do have one right now, but it's on my mind, it's on my plate.
Sorry, if I could just add briefly that from a regional, sub-regional perspective, Councillor Moko, this has been elevated as a critical element, workforce development, but not in isolation. So we could be really good at it, but if all of us collectively are not, it's a huge, from an economic development standpoint, it's a huge opportunity. So it's been elevated both at future-proof level economic development, but then our wider regional group, and put as a priority on a framework that's being developed is how do you bring that critical element into the fray to have a wider discussion on how to address that overall as a sub-region and region. So realizing that it's a tough one, but a critical one to get right at a regional and sub-regional level.
Would you like some help in connecting?
I'd welcome that. If it's all right, just on that same pain, there are regional, there are some really awesome efforts going on here in the Waikato as test beds. There is specifically in the metals fabrication, metals manufacturing space, where businesses are working together with MSD, with the MOE, to create new pathways for students who are wanting to enter the workforce. Now, it's not just about classroom, it's a hybrid. Waikato, the businesses here in Hamilton were chosen as the first cohort to do this, and it's going really well, with plans to expand that nationwide. That's like the industry, there are efforts happening. It's not like there's nothing going on in this space. It's just a matter of how do we best add value to that as council, and how do we build on what others are doing rather than trying to create our own path in it.
I'm aware of the gap.
Yeah,
it was raised a few years ago, so can certainly help connect.
I welcome that. Thank you so much for offering that.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. This question might be to Blair. It was just around paragraph, I think, 57, where it talked about the Rototuna Plan Change 20. And my question was, do we know what impact the government's announcements around stopping plan changes has had on, well, yeah, can you just talk a little bit about that? Is it likely that they'll be able to continue on?
So we do speak to that in the strategic growth reports coming up into the next committee, but
Okay, I can wait till then.
in summary, it is caught by the government's changes, and we may have to seek an exemption. So.
Okay, thank you. I can wait for all the detail in like another week, so yeah,
Okay.
that's good, thanks. Cool.
Okay, excellent. Right, so colleagues, Greg, did you want to add anything before I get Sean to cover H3? Did you want to cover anything more on the economics?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I can talk to some highlights, but it's in the report, so I'm happy for people to ask questions. Or
And you're not ticky, are you?
I can try.
Colleagues, does anybody have any questions of, you will have all read the report, rather than get Greg sort of go in depth, do any of you have any questions of Greg concerning the economic update? It's a very good slide presentation, starting on page 72.
And Tiki is definitely still here. She's just on a training program today, hence she can't be available to share her wisdom with us.
I feel we haven't seen her in such a long time that she's missing in action, but okay. All right. Okay.
Well, maybe, Councillor Ewan, I mean, I think there are a couple of interesting things that struck me as surprising. So there were 2,700 more filled jobs as compared to last year, 276 more businesses, and we completed, or there were 1,245 homes completed in Hamilton, which is pretty much, it was just a nudge above the Nydia High level. But conversely, there's a significantly fewer number of houses under construction, and consenting is slow. So we're seeing that lag, coming up the pipeline. And unemployment's up to nearly 7%, and we've seen a drop off, but in our GDP figures, but not too disparate from New Zealand. So there's a few interesting things there, I think, where let's see how the next 6 months or a year goes, because we're getting some mixed signals, I would say.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Excellent. Sean. Councillor Anna.
Just quickly, thank you, Greg. In terms of I just read an article yesterday about young people leaving to go to Aussie. So any reflections on that particular issue for Hamilton?
I'm not sure about Hamilton particularly, but it's certainly an issue for New Zealand. We spoke a little bit earlier, but Hamilton, and we're doing quite a study on this, but the internal migration to Hamilton is still pretty healthy. So, and the other thing is we've got jobs, and at the end of the day, it's not about population, it's about jobs. Either you come with your parents or you come for jobs. So New Zealand sits well in that respect, but we can never deny that Auckland's always going to have opportunities that are different to here. But I think relatively speaking, we're pretty solid on that compared to other areas.
Okay, so we're holding on to our young people.
Holding on to our young people, as I understand it, yeah. And as I said, we're doing a bit more of a study where we can dig into demographics. And I think just one more, as Councillor Bidder raised that point around international migration. So there has been a substantial downward change in international migration. But the thing to remember is that is a very volatile cycle, international migration. So it really depends. It can be quite sensitive to policy changes at government, and if you look at the graph, it's quite a wavy graph, so you always try and take a bit of a longer view and see how it looks over a, say, a 2, 3, 4, 5 year period.
And just quickly regarding housing, because it often is such a big part of these reports, I have heard it described that our economy is a housing market with bits tacked on. Someone refers to it that way. What's your comment on that? How significant is housing to jobs and general economic outlook?
Yeah, so I think like residential construction in terms of jobs is, you know, in the top 3 or 4, I think, from memory. So it's a significant part of our economy. But I also think the backbone of our economy is around the areas that RF has been looking into. So manufacturing, logistics is obviously a really big sector. So we will feel the downside of what is effectively a residential construction recession. But on the other hand, and this is one of the real strengths of Hamilton's economy, is just the number of other pillars, so 3 or 4, including manufacturing pillars that should see us through that period.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, I was interested on page 6 of the slides, Hamilton consenting activity, and it talks about new houses granted with the infill at 64% and Greenfield at 36%, and it was just interesting, the whole breakdown there. I wondered if you had any comments or insights around those percentages we're seeing.
Well, they're consistent with, you know, the last couple of years. So as we all know, there's been a strong move to infill. And remember, we're counting units here, so, you know, 5 attached townhouses versus 5, say, Greenfield dwellings. But yeah, these are similar levels. I mean, one thing in the Greenfield, there's been significant amount of you know, resource consenting or even lodged resource and subdivision consent. So there's potentially something in the pipeline there. There's much more to say about the feasibility and attractiveness of infill versus greenfield. So maybe we could bring that back another time. But and the cost of, you know, infrastructure and the cost of housing there. But yeah, pretty consistent with what we've seen, I think, overall.
Okay, thank you.
Colleagues, Sean, we're in your hands.
Thank you, Chair. Look, for the report for this meeting today, I've just provided you with a very quick commentary on different elements of the destination group operations, bearing in mind at the next meeting of this committee you'll receive the full year-end reports for the destination groups that cover the H3 operations, museum, gardens and zoo facilities. So we've just given you some information on how things are tracking in the meantime, but we've actually had a very, very good year right across the board. If you reflected on some of the statements from Nicola from Hamilton Waikato Tourism, for H3 in particular, the business events has been an outstanding year for Claudelands, which has been quite remarkable. And you'll pick up that whilst the H3 operation didn't meet its attendance targets, it blitzed its targets in terms of revenue and activity from its various bookings and so forth that it had. So that is largely to do with a mix of the type of business we get that fluctuates from one year to another. So performance and impact type activity, or exhibitions in particular, had lower attendance numbers this year. However, that was more than replaced by the business event uplift that we had. So there's just a mix in the sort of segments that we cater to there. Similarly with the destinations, the garden, zoo, and museum, despite the museum being closed, they had really, really good visitation numbers. The zoo and gardens in particular performed extremely well. The gardens, it's almost like the advent of introducing paid admission and also the rigour of that Hamiltonians have to go through to be validated for free admission. It hasn't seemed to have detracted at all from visitation. Last week, I know I just sort of quickly looked at the figures. The gardens, despite the fact of the weather, the bad or the winter season that we're in the middle of, we still had 4,000 people visited the enclosed gardens. Roughly 1,500 of those were Hamilton residents. The balance were from outside of the city, and therefore paying in one form or another, whether it was through an annual pass or through just a single entry admission. The museum, we had around 1,000 visitors last week alone, and the zoo 3,700 visitors. So that's quite a good number for this time of year. So we're quite encouraged by sort of how that's going through. The only other comment I would have to make really does relate to Hamilton Waikato Tourism, who we work very closely with on a number of fronts. And if you don't mind my just adding, Nicola talked to you about a lot of the initiatives she's doing, the work she's doing with Jetstar, with partners, with other regional tourism organisations. And I'm not wanting to put a negative or a bit of a bleat on things, but I do want to manage your expectations on what they can do and how much they can do given their resources. The depth and breadth of what a regional tourism organisation can do is huge, but they can only do what their resources allow. So whilst we have a lot of good ideas and a lot of things we want to do with them, there are limitations for physically how much they can do with the resources they have, which can be challenging for them. And I'm not belying the factor there of what we commit to them, because we commit very well to them, but I do want to manage your expectations of what they can do in the environment that we're in. And other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Maxine.
Thanks, Sean, for the report and largely the good news that's coming out of that. I just wanted to pick up on the business events pipeline and the comment also that Nicola made that despite the other venues coming on stream around the country, that we've still managed to keep our numbers up. Would we be expecting that to turn around at any point, or is it that we've just got one of the best offerings out there, or do we need to add some more sweeteners? Or your comments on that would be greatly appreciated.
Our biggest threat to business growth is, as it is at the moment, is a lack of hotel rooms. We seem to be able to hold our own in a competitive sense when we're pitching ourselves against other conferencing facilities, for example, around the country. Christchurch, Wellington and the soon-to-open Auckland areas are stiff competition for us. I'll just remind you, however, that there are other factors that are in play as well. First of all, a lot of business events like to rotate around the country, so it's not abnormal for them to go to Christchurch, then Auckland, then Wellington, then Hamilton, or whatever. So fortunately, however, on that rotation, we are well embedded to be on that rotation circuit for a lot of the associations that do things. The second element to it, I would have to say, is that, and I've said this to this committee and others before, that the construct of the Claudelands facility in particular, the way it's located, the way we have arena, conferencing, exhibition space, then wide open spaces around it, is actually unique, and that is a massive competitive advantage that Hamilton has for a lot of different types of conferences that require that sort of mixed use or different type of room spaces, as opposed to other places that could do a big conference but they can't do exhibition space, or they can't do outdoor space to put a whole lot of heavy equipment that's a part of the conference sort of setup. So we have a bit of a competitive advantage on that front. But I have to say, I still believe our strongest competitive advantage that we have is our staff, our team that are out there generating the business. We've got a fantastic reputation for delivery and for our relationship management, and we have a fantastic partnership with our downstream suppliers, who are just as important, if not more important, than the room itself. And I'll talk about our hospitality, our technology suppliers and so forth. So we're reasonably well placed from a competitive point of view, but we do know we lose business because of lack of commercial accommodation.
Councillor.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Anna.
Thanks, Sean. Just a question based on Nicola's presentation too, around the idea of packages for our visitor destinations. Is that something we're actively exploring?
Yeah, look, we do, and Hamilton Waikato Tourism do suggested packages. They don't actually operate commercially themselves and sell things. But you need to bear in mind that a lot of the customer streams that they work with, and that our team at the Gardens, for example, work with, they create the packages. So what we do is we work with them to see, well, how can our offer be part of your package that you put together? So yes, we do work with people that package up. We don't package ourselves necessarily. That said, to Councillor Tim's point earlier on in the questioning, we are looking to create some combined admission packages between the gardens and the zoo, for example. And we're just sort of working on that now, and that'll be something that'll be introduced. I would caution, however, that will probably primarily target the domestic market or the regional market, as opposed to necessarily the international market. One of the things when you're dealing with the international market, and we have a big growth at the gardens in our tour groups, which is going really well, and I say that the people who organise those tours, they effectively package. But one of the biggest things we have that we fight for, just like any visitor attraction does, it's not about having the right price for someone to go, it's actually you're fighting for their time. And when you're fighting for their time, it's because people are in New Zealand for a finite period of time. They have a priority of what are the things, the iconic things, what are the things that are different to anywhere else that are in New Zealand that they can do. And Hamilton Gardens is absolutely one of those. I guess I would signal to you, as much as we love our museum and are very proud, our zoo, and are very proud of our zoo and so forth, people can go to a zoo in a lot of places. So if we're talking about international visitors, we just have to have a bit of a realistic mindset about how much you can achieve when you're fighting for that person's time and priority setting, bearing in mind when they're in our region, we've got Waitomo on one side of us and Hobbiton on the other side as well, which is really good from a joined up point of view. So I just caution, once again, expectation when it comes to international travellers.
And just quickly, with the gardens, as Councillor McCall mentioned, we had a day down there with Tainui Waka Tourism. Have you met with them recently about their potential offering there?
I have not met with them recently, but certainly the team at the gardens have worked with them from time to time on different initiatives they have. But I would stress they are one of a number of companies and organisations that we deal with who do things at the gardens. So there are a lot of people that work with us to do a special event or a special initiative at the garden. So, there's a range of options that we have.
Thank you.
Okay. And I thought I was nearly there. Councillor Tim.
Mr. Chair, and it's actually prompted by Sean's comment. Thank you, Sean, for the comments you have just made, and I absolutely accept the point you've made about the fact that people don't fly into New Zealand to come to Hamilton Zoo. Having said that, I am really excited that you're working on the combo package. How do we raise the profile within New Zealand of the fact that our zoo is so good? Because when people go, they often say, we didn't even know you had a zoo. We certainly didn't realise it was so good. And it does seem to me that there is an opportunity there, and that comes off the combo package, for us to raise awareness of the fact that our zoo is one of the best in the Southern Hemisphere.
I guess I'll answer that by way of a lesson. We had no money to market Claudelands. Yeah. The way Claudelands has moved over the years to grow and grow and grow and grow has been through delivery and through people's experience and the reputation that we have garnered. And the word of mouth that has delivered has really been our strength. Now the zoo, I would argue, at the moment, its growth in numbers is totally predicated on the word of mouth feedback. People have visited it, had a great experience, they tell other people to do it. For us to lift it higher, we need to ensure that the zoo experience keeps lifting and lifting, which is something we're going to talk to you about on the 6th of August as well. The other option we have is to do more marketing, more campaigning. And once again, I'd have to say we are reasonably conservative when it comes to marketing budgets to get more exposure and more voice out there for the zoo. So that's always a question we've got to ask ourselves is, what do we do to lift that? That would send a big story. I think if you look at the arrivals at the gardens, we did a huge campaign communications campaign to market the new fee, the reasons we did, and also especially for Hamiltonians about what do you have to do in order to secure your free admission. That in itself generated huge awareness of the gardens and huge interest and intention to actually come and visit it, even though the primary messaging was all about the administration of the admission. But that was one example where we did an extraordinary amount of voice in the marketplace about the gardens, and that in itself generated a lot.
Thank you. Maria, are you happy to move that we receive the report? Councillor Muku, would you second? Okay, it's up for debate. Is there any debate? Councillor Maria?
In terms of the brain drain to Australia and our young people heading there for better prospects, it's an actual thing. And I'm just going to give a personal example, and those of you who would be aware of it, that my son moved over there in April as a qualified arborist, and within 2 weeks he was able to get a job. His whole crew was from New Zealand, and his wage was $20,000 more than here. And then recently, 2 weeks ago, he flew out to the mines, and that was another $20,000 rise in wages. Within 5 weeks, they were able to find a house. It's affordable, way more pay. They have a whole community over there in terms of their friends from New Zealand. And here's another example. The local league tournament here in Waikato now only has 4 teams. Tūranga Waiwai Rugby League Club, who's won back-to-back well, recently, last year, like grand championships and been going for 78 years, they can no longer field a premier team because all of their players have gone to Australia. Now, my son is also able, because he's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, he's also able to go back to his original job as an arborist and work in those 2 weeks and then 2 weeks in the mines. So that's a real example, and I'm only one person. So I'm sure there's multiple examples, and we really need to do something in that space to keep our tamariki here. Kia ora.
Councillor Muku.
Mike and the team for Sean and all the mahi that you're doing. I guess we're right in the middle of the Golden Triangle, and I think it's important that we get a good sense of what our labour market's going to look like in the future. I think we spend some time and we build a relationship with an institution or institutions that are able to fill that gap and tailor programs that are suited to the needs of those communities. And I am aware of the communications that have been happening between Waikato and the Bay of Plenty, largely around filling that gap and strategies that those two institutions in terms of Toyo Homai and Wintec were taking for people who were wanting to retrain. And so these are people that have, no longer in the work market and are retraining for another trade. And for many of them, they were quite keen to look at freight, driving and all that sort of stuff. So those institutions are aware of those sorts of needs, and they're really keen to have those conversations. And so however we can help make those connections, then happy to help.
Excellent. I'll just quickly add, if I could, to the mix. I think we're very lucky that Hamilton has a very mature and diversified economy. And that has built up over the decades. And so even during challenging economic times, there are always elements of our industry mix that are doing well. And we should be very proud of that. I'm also reminded that when times are challenging, it's when you double down in investing in the types of work that RF and Martin is doing under the leadership of Mike Bennett. That type of work helps organic growth of existing businesses. It keeps businesses here. It helps to identify educational gaps, and it helps to fill jobs. These are the very things that a number of us talk about as being critical to underpinning our economic growth. And so we need to keep focusing on that. I think we are very lucky in this city to have the likes of Greg and Tiki and others who help provide us real, live, dynamic, helpful information about the economic pulse. Because if you've got intelligence, you're able to put forward intelligent solutions to challenges and celebrate those successes. So I think we're very lucky that we have the quality of people and direction. And I would encourage the next council to make sure that they keep the economic team in play, invest in it, because it drives real benefit. Councillor Andrew.
I'm hoping that Councillor Maria can pass on her son's phone number just in case the election doesn't go so well.
It's been moved by Councillor Maria and Councillor Moko. Second, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Excellent. Okay, we're now moving on to 10. Colleagues, I'm going to take our lunch break after we move into public excluded, the next one. So we're making good progress. Nicholas, welcome.
Mr. Chairman, there are 4 items of note in this report. The first is the final quarter results for the MEF, and that, of course, is the final year-end result for the MEF as well. I suppose we've got a little bit more detail on the MEF in the PX section, but what I would like to say here is that some areas of it have been doing extremely well, and the standout really is the performance of the Milford Balanced Fund, where we're getting an exceptionally good return, which is well in excess of what we thought we would be getting, given the post-COVID environment and the Trump conniptions. So it's done a lot better than we had expected. So that's helped pull the result up. The result itself is 4%. So that's the net return on the MEF. Now, just to put that in context, because the number doesn't sound very, very impressive, but when I tell you that if you take the net average return of New Zealand's 10 largest private sector property investment companies, that's 3.88%. So it's the MEF is doing better than that. If you look at the top 3 of those companies with funds under management of $6 billion, then the MEF has outperformed the bottom 2 of those. So the number is small, but it's a good result in the context of this environment. The other updates deal with Tristram Street, so bridge housing. Still to draw down the first tranche of their $10 million loan. We have been expecting that for the last couple of weeks, and they are saying that they will be making that drawdown on Friday. So we're expecting the first of the drawdowns on Friday. In the meantime, obviously, if you've been past the site, you'll see that it's been cleared of buildings and it's full steam ahead in terms of construction. VOTR Southern Edge, I'll make another comment about this one. So this is Templeton in the PX section. But they're beavering away on their consent application. Obviously, there's a lot of work pulling together a consent application of that scale. And they're indicating that they are still anticipating lodging their consent before Christmas. And the third of the updates on developments is Area Q, the Jones Land Limited development on the site that we sold them late last year. They were intending to develop that site with 67 units. They've increased that number now to 72, so that's a tick, and they're looking to lodge their consent within the next fortnight. And on that basis, Mr. Chairman, I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. It's a very good report. The report makes interesting reading. I've got Councillor Anna.
Just a quick question about the 72. Are any of them 1 bedroom, or what are the additional ones?
They haven't stipulated. There will be a mix, so they're required to provide a broad range of typographies, a broad range of affordabilities. They are committed to a minimum 10% affordable housing. Mm-hmm. So effectively, they've lifted the number to by 1 housing unit.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions? Sorry, Kesh. I really need eyes in the back of my head.
Following on from Councillor Anna, the increase to 72, cool. The process for that consent, would it have to be publicly notified, or is it just straightforward?
No, it won't be publicly notified. It's consistent with the zoning requirement for the site.
It is consistent.
Yeah.
Okay.
My only caveat there is I haven't seen the application, but it will be assessed in the normal manner, and if required, it would be publicly notified. But I don't expect it to require notification.
Thank you.
Right, colleagues, I'll move the recommendations that we receive the report on page 78, seconded by Councillor Anna. We'll open it up for debate. I have no debate. No one else has any debate. I'll move. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Wonderful. I'll move that we move into public excluded, seconded by Councillor Jeff. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Colleagues, let's break for 40 minutes and we'll plough on the second half. 1 o'clock. Perfect. Thank you. I'm not expecting it to take us much more than an hour or so after lunch.